I was involved in the very early part of the Toronto sound scene, late 60s, very early 70s. And I was a folkie. I'm mostly a musician, which is what I do now and have been doing for a long time. I don't really do much sound anymore, but what I did then is I was involved with Mariposa Folk Festival and other folk festivals as stage manager and one of the directors. And we had been going to Newport Folk Festival and Philadelphia and all of those festivals, and they had great sound, or great sound for the time. And the only person that could do our sound was a guy by the name of Jack Beer at Electro Voice, and Jack did columns and Bogan amps and mixers. And by the late 70s, I think the last show he did was 67 or 68, we had 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people out at in Caledon East at a show, and we had 4 columns and 2 Bogan amps, and it just didn't cut it, especially with the Chicago Blues Band. So we started looking around for other ways of doing it, and there was absolutely nobody in Canada or nobody within a reasonable distance anyway, that could do higher quality sound. So one of the people that was sort of peripherally involved in the festival was a guy by the name of John Dildine, who was a film sound, documentary sound guy, and we hired him, and he laid out a spec. And the other person that was involved in Mariposa was Roger Dean, who was tech director for the National Ballet at the time. And the two of them sort of got together, and I got together with them as stage managers. And John, being a film guy, spec'd out A7s, Altec A7s, and voice of the theater stuff. So the next year we moved to Olympic Island, and we used A7s and Altec amps, and all rented from General Sound. And the mixer may have come from JMR, I don't remember. And the sound was unbelievable compared to what it had been the year before. So the next year, or over the next year, I decided that I would sort of get involved in it, not really knowing that much about it, but I was sort of stage manager. And John Dildine couldn't do it, so basically I bought some A7s from General Sound and some Altec amps and some Altec rack mount mixers, and it just sort of started from there. And to make a really long story short, everybody started using A7s, because we had, our first show was Ian and Sylvia at Convocation Hall. The next night was Judy Collins at Massey Hall, and about a week later was the Chieftains at Massey Hall, with 4 A7s, and at the time, because we didn't have any more money, 1 Altec amp. No monitors, because we didn't really know what they were. And then again, most of the musicians didn't either, so that was okay. We went on from there, and as the scene sort of changed, we got into the rock thing, but the A7s weren't really that suitable for them. I mean, they were really a theater speaker. So what we did is we had a guy make the cases, or make the actual boxes with thicker plywood. I think Altec spec'd half-inch. We used 3/4 inch. We put JBL 15s in the bottom and used Altec horns with JBL drivers on the top. And rock bands were using them. We were selling them all over the place. What happened after that is some other companies started to get involved with it, like Yorkville Sound, and we couldn't compete, and we were on the road, and we didn't have the financing to say, okay, we need 8 more A7s, run back to the warehouse and get them. So basically, we sort of folded up. It wasn't really even a company. It was just a bunch of guys. I mean, it was called Festival Production, but it wasn't a corporation. It was basically a small company. But for a while there, basically, we got all the sound gigs happening from Massey Hall to O'Keefe, because at one point, our partner was Jimmy Fuller, who was president of IATSE. It just sort of expanded from there, and then a lot of American groups started coming in. We were friends with a company in the States called Activated Air, and when Mariposa changed its format from a main stage with, at that point, 10,000 people to 6 smaller stages, we didn't have the equipment to to do that, all the amps and all the mixers and everything. And other than going to Long and McQuaid and renting, but it wasn't the stuff we wanted to rent, nobody could do it. So we brought Activated Air in to do 3 of the stages, and we did 3 of the other stages. And basically that's how community loudspeakers got introduced to Canada, because they brought in the community bass horns, and that was the first time they had ever been used. Activated Air was actually a downsized version of a very large company in Philadelphia called Festival Group, and their contracts were Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead. They had like 6 or 7 crews on the road all the time, and they just wanted to downsize. So they downsized and used mostly community equipment. Basically after that, I'd done a lot of mixing in Toronto and sold stuff, but basically I ended up moving to Europe for a long time and still basically work in mostly Greece and Turkey as a musician and a producer. And that's basically my story.